Okay. Whether FIIs would make a comeback or not, let's ask Adrian more about that. But before that, Adrian, hi, good morning, and thanks for patiently waiting by. I just wanted to discuss what's happening in Korea. And does it seem like this is just the start of that AI bubble burst that everyone's been talking about?
It's a good question. I'm not sure if the phrase is bubble bursting is correct here in terms of the movement that we've seen in Micron, SanDisk, Hynix, Samsung share prices are all consistent with very dramatic positive earnings revisions because the supply-demand dynamics for semiconductors is so tight, particularly the type of memory chip used by AI data centers. But I do think you could get to a situation where the second differentials start to roll over and you're no longer getting these very, very positive earnings revisions. And perhaps the momentum behind these stocks come off. Let's not forget that we're looking at stocks that are up 150% year to date. Something like SanDisk is up 600 or so. So we have had some quite substantial moves. But I think the fact these share prices are going up is based upon a very positive fundamental that the earnings revisions have been very, very strong. Maybe the way to think about AI is what's the next phase. So if you think about what's been going on in the AI space, you have in 22, ChatGPT comes out, we start.
I think we lost. To have snapped that line. Just going to get back to Adrian in just a second. A very interesting point that he was making as to how one should actually look at the at what's playing out in South Korea and whether that can be interlinked to perhaps a more wider, a more global correction in any of the AI stocks and all. But I think Adrian is back with us. Adrian, if you can hear me, please finish your point.
Yes, sorry. I think we probably need geo internet here rather than the current internet I've got. So apologize for this. I was just highlighting that we need to think about the next phase for AI. And I think the next phase should be which companies are actually pushing up revenue or reducing costs by applying AI. And I think we need to see that for the AI theme to be one that progresses over the next couple of years. So the semi names have been the big focus. It's made a lot of fundamental sense. The profit numbers out of Micron were spectacular. But the question is, are we going to continue to see this very large CapEx? And that CapEx can only continue if you really begin to see the economic benefits of those using AI.
Adrian, in the last few days, we have seen a huge amount of outflows from Korean markets as well, especially from the foreign investors. Do you think that there's a reset which they are doing? Of course, they may be agreeing with the kind of growth many of the companies are coming out with, but the kind of the run-up that the stocks have had, do you think it's a reset and booking of profits which is coming in?
If I'm correct, looking at the data, foreigners have been selling Korea for most of the year. I think you've had portfolio structure issues because Samsung and Hynix have become such large parts of the portfolio. It's also been a story in Taiwan where TSMC is now something like 14% of the EM index. So I don't think there's a short-term change in the flows from foreign investors. I think we've had, a few events that are small news stories that have caused a bit of a sell-off in stocks that have performed extremely well. It's also important to remember that there are quite a lot of structured products, derivatives, that are impacting the volatility of these shares. And the retail investor, particularly in Korea, has got very involved in this bull market. So I think we're going to spend the rest of this year seeing high volatility in these memory names. But let's not forget that their valuations are not in bubble territory. Their P multiples actually look quite reasonable. And there's no clear evidence that there's a big supply coming on in this sector. So maybe they can support those high earnings into next year.
Hi, yeah, great having all of those views. Give us a sense, Adrian, if this is bubble territory and if this were to, at some point of time, implode, what plays out globally? Because India, in relative terms, hasn't participated in the trade at all. Does it impact India, in your opinion? Does it not? How should one look at it from an Indian standpoint?
Sorry, I missed part of that again. We're having some technical issues here.
No worries. So Adrian, I'm trying to understand if this were to be a bubble and if this were to implode, what happens from an India standpoint? Because India has largely not participated in this AI trade of sorts, right? And therefore, does India remain largely insulated? How should one look at it from the Indian standpoint?
Well, India has hardly been insulated from this. We've had the tech sector down something like 30+% year to date. So India seems to be in bear market territory because of AI and the fear of AI. Now, I talked earlier about what are the companies that can demonstrate that they're getting a margin improvement or higher revenue. If we were to start to see some of the Indian IT companies proving that they can help customers use AI effectively, then I think that would definitely change the sentiment. Remember, if you look at these companies at the moment, their top line earnings growths are still very modest, even though they still seem to be holding up their margins. And back to this sort of bubble question, remember that the markets have been in very, very narrow. Chinese equities, Indian equities are pretty much in bear territory at the moment. Also true in Southeast Asia for the equity markets. If you look at the Mag 7, the technicals in many of the Mag 7 companies are very poor. A stock like Microsoft is down 25% from its 52-week high. What we've had is a very, very narrow move in the semiconductor sector. And I think taking a bit of froth out of that is fine. But as I was saying before, the earnings numbers have justified these moves. This is quite different than looking at tech stocks in the late 2000s. So my comment on views on bubbles is it's been very narrow moves in the market. Many stocks are in more like bear territory, declining P multiple.
Adrian, I think we seem to be on a bad line today. But anyways, thank you very much today for joining us. Let's step into a break and we'll come back with more.